broadcast network, AFTERBUZZ TV. Over 20 million weekly downloads in over 150 countries, and your #1 source for after-show entertainment. AFTERBUZZ TV, the destination for TV superfans, producing after-shows for over 300 of your favorite TV shows, interviewing celebrities and showrunners, and bringing you behind-the-scenes exclusives. All thanks to E! Entertainment's Maria Menounos, producer Kevin Undergaro, and internet leader Akamai. Now, let the buzz begin!
Hello, it's time. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Walking Dead After Show here on AFTERBUZZ. And everyone's doing. Walkers don't do that too. No, walkers don't do that.
They don't do it.
They don't do that. I told you that.
Well, we do.
What we do at the Walking Dead.
Okay, fine. I'm your host for this week, Nando Velasquez. David Klein is out on assignment.
Yes, for a couple weeks.
For a couple of weeks, yeah. On a personal assignment.
Things.
Nothing really.
Good things.
Good things for him. Good things for him.
He's with the Walking Dead.
Yes, but we do have a full panel today, and let me start off by going to the far end of the board over here. Yeah, that's you. That's you, Mr. Derrial Christon.
Hello.
So
Hello, Walkers. Walker fans. How you doing?
And where can we find you on Twitter?
Are we doing that really already?
Because it's on the bottom. You can say it.
You can find me under my name and Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. That's all you need to know.
Okay, and next to him is Joyce.
Hi, guys. You guys can find me on Twitter at JAJOURI. I'm back. Glad to be back.
And
Yes.
we are welcoming to our
missed you.
panel for this week. We are welcoming right next to me.
Hi.
John Carle.
Hi, nice to be on the panel here. This is my second AfterBuzz ever. And you can find me on Twitter at @TheJohnCarl. Also, if you feel like harassing the guy who has @JohnCarl and he won't give it up to me, feel free.
There you go. And you can find me on Twitter and Instagram at @NandoVel. And please catch us on we're streaming on SoundCloud now, all over the place. So please catch us, of course, on YouTube if you're listening, and iTunes and everything. And our hashtag is ABTV Walking Dead. I believe.
Yes. Subscribe and hashtag everything.
Yeah, exactly. So we're going to talk about the name of the episode this week is Remember. But before we do that, I want to talk about a very special show that's premiering on ABC this Thursday. It's a really big show. It's called American Crime. And I said that really weird.
That was really weird.
And the whole it's a crime that I said it. And pretty much the whole thing is the whole the line is, what if your son was murdered and your daughter arrested, your child framed? Where does the truth lie? One crime will affect so many lives in the television event of the year. So that's how they live. And it's got a star-studded cast. It's got Felicity Huffman from Desperate Housewives. Timothy Hutton's in it. It's created by John Ridley, who's the Oscar-winning screenwriter for 12 Years a Slave.
Yeah.
And it premieres this Thursday on ABC, March 5th at 10/9 Central. And of course, we will be doing an AfterBuzz for that as well.
Of course we will.
So once you're done watching that, please tune in to our AfterBuzz show.
Sounds
Awesome.
like it'll start off, really cool. And
It
crazy.
sounds like, from what I've been hearing, it sounds like it's a lot like Broadchurch. For those of you who are familiar with the British version, and Grace Point was the Fox version that came out earlier this year, but I hear it's a lot better than Grace Point. So, and it looks good. Everything I've seen is good.
Yeah, all I know is when I was binging on Agent Carter to get caught up for Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. this week, I was watching it on the app, and I probably saw commercials for that about 15, 20 times. So now I think I'm just required to watch it at this point.
Oh, boy. Well, anyway, let's get started with this episode. So the name of this episode is Remember, and I feel like when I hear that, I feel like this episode's a lot about reminiscing, kind of reliving the past a little bit, kind of going back to your roots.
Yeah.
And from what we see, this episode really is about the entire group acclimating to this new environment they're in.
Yeah.
Alexandria. So very, very interesting. What are your guys' impressions so far in general on Alexandria?
So before they get into that, I just want to say I have a differing opinion on what the name actually means. But
Okay.
but I feel like it doesn't work until we get to the end of this episode, just because the pacing of the conversation, I feel like it cuts it off.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, fair. Well, remind me.
Yes,
And we'll
absolutely.
go back to that. Because that was just my interpretation of
That was a
Remember It.
preview.
That's a preview. That's what
preview.
in the business they call that a tease.
Yes, that was a nice tease, John.
I think I know where you're getting
Yeah.
at, John.
Yeah, I do too.
I have an idea too, but
Yeah.
we'll save that one.
I liked it. Wow, I'm already stuttering. I think it's great that they're finally finding a place to chill, at least for a little bit. I was all naive about it. I was like, great, now they can just hang out and live a life and be comfortable for a while. But then Carle brought up the whole, I don't want us to get weak line. And I was like, oh, shit, like, that's true. If they're not out there fighting, if they're not out there defending themselves, and they're just kind of being complacent, it could hurt them more than anything. So I think that sets up for a really interesting rest of the season and finale.
Carle and Carol said that. I think Carol said that.
Carol said it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I'm kind of with what you're saying, Joyce. Is I feel like with Rick and Carol, at this point, you can't let your guard down.
Yep.
And when things seem so perfect, they're not perfect, and it's tough. I mean, because I know that they're exhausted. They've been fighting this battle for a long time. So when they go to a place that seems like it's okay and it's actually sane, and you can go to sleep at night, and you have a guard in the front, and you can actually kind of chill out. It's okay, but they can't. And when things seem so good, they usually aren't.
Because they've experienced that before.
They've experienced that before.
Yeah. And that's where you look to where they were in the prison, which should have been the most secure spot you can get. I mean, it's made to keep people in and keep people out.
Yeah.
This is something that an architect built. I mean, it's not anywhere near that level of security.
Yeah.
It's never going to be.
Yeah.
Before I continue, I just want to say we also have Alexis engineering for us, and she's also going to be checking out our YouTube chat roll, because we're live streaming on YouTube and chiming in from time to time. So
go Alexis.
Just letting you know that we love you, Alexis, and you're here with us.
And if you're watching us on YouTube, check out youtube.com/user/whiskey and waffles. That's my channel, so I'm just going to plug that once. That's all I'm going to do.
Just once.
Just
That's
once.
Whiskey and waffles.
Whiskey and waffles.
Well, what I love about Alexandria, I mean, it's a little interesting because at the end of last week's episode, we talked a lot about this, about the laughter and the children, but this is a pretty creepy town still. There's still like whether you think what this town is or not, it's still coming across pretty creepy. And add to that the fact that, this group is being let in kind of like these rabid dogs that are looking, they're trying to civilize them all of a sudden. I mean, the best example is Rick's beard. It's like it's big as it's ever been before we finally see that transformation when he shaves.
Yeah.
And the other perfect example of that, and we could talk more about that, is Derrial. I mean, he shoots a possum within the opening moment. It's like they get frightened and he just shoots it with the crossbow.
And then he says, "We brought dinner."
Yeah. And he just carries it around with him like for half the episode until he guts it on the porch.
Well, I think the uncomfortability of the town comes from how sterile it is.
Yeah.
This isn't a town
Everything
that
looks
was
alike.
It wasn't lived in because it was a community that was in the process of being finished, and people weren't all lived in these houses. There wasn't the guy who hit the curb or anything like that. People hadn't wrecked the town yet.
Right.
It's too perfect right now.
These feel like those model houses you see in those developments. Like every single house.
Everyone looks the same. There's no difference. Everybody's like the same type of person. And what made me nervous too is the fact that I almost felt like when Rick cut his beard that he was almost assimilating to what he felt so comfortable that he was assimilating to what they had already built. Where Carol seemed to be the person, even though she put on her, I call it the Brady Bunch outfit.
She was Carol Brady.
She was Carol Brady.
Somewhere between Carol and Alice, I feel like.
Yeah. But she still kept it real and said, you know what, I'm putting on this outfit, but we need to be on alert still.
Yep.
She even said that to Derrial.
Yeah, she said we're keeping up appearances.
She's like a super spy, just trying to assimilate in. Which is pretty interesting.
She's the most dangerous one in that group.
Well, it was so funny when they had to hand over all their guns finally, and they finally agreed to, and they had that one dolly or that one cart, and Carol's trying to just take the biggest gun that anyone has off of her, and it was like a good 30-second segment.
For her, it was comically big. It was just too big for her tiny frame. Which was, it was one of the funnier things I saw.
Right. But that also played into what she was doing because she was playing up. Oh, I had this husband. I always made sure dinner was on the table, and I missed that man.
She missed him even though he was an
Where
asshole.
it's her carrying the big gun and not knowing what to do with it.
Yeah.
So right from the beginning, she's like, I'm gonna let these people think I'm a bumbling idiot.
Yeah.
So I'm never
That's
going to
a
be
really
the
good
suspect.
point. I didn't think about that.
She's the deadly force.
Well, when we were watching her say that whole thing about her husband and everything, we're like, he abused the hell out of you, and it's like obviously she's BSing
and then
the
she
whole time.
just kept going with it, and we're like, okay, I got it.
What I like with this place is the fact that it's not from what I see so far, and I think Alexandria is going to be a good place for them for a long time, it's not them coming in and they're fighting for leadership. Like, there's none of that. I mean,
not yet.
Well, not yet.
Yeah.
But we saw, like, in the beginning of, other times they tried to settle, like, people came in and tried to take control, and Rick always, came out on top. But at this point, I feel like Rick is feeling a little leveled, and that's what I like. I get a good sense of this, but I can see why everyone is uneasy about, being here at a place that's so pristine and so put together. But at the same time, it's like, okay, well, no one's really trying to vie for any sort of control. Everyone just kind of goes out on their own accord and does whatever they want and has a role and a job, but, that's it.
I like it, the communist one. I love it when Deanna says, the communist one.
Yeah,
Everyone's got a job.
really funny.
Well, I also feel like Deanna Monroe, honestly, just from watching this episode, I feel like she wants a male figure with her to help her kind of to run the environment.
Because her son is
because her son is clearly not trying to listen to mama. So I feel like she wants another force with her to help her kind of create the tone of what's going on.
Well,
there.
let's talk a little bit about Deanna, because she is one of a couple of new characters that we were introduced to this week, and I felt like she gave me a very big Kate Mulgrew impression. Her the actress is actually Tova Feldshuh. I hope I'm saying that name right.
I don't think you said it.
You didn't deliver that with confidence there, Nando.
Feld Shuh. It's like shush. No?
Shush.
Feldshuh.
Sure.
Yeah, sure.
Sounds good.
So she was, I believe, the mom in Kissing Jessica Stein. That was probably one of her biggest roles, and she was in Lady in the Water. But anyway, she was really, really good. She plays a congresswoman from Ohio. She gave her backstory. They were trying to get to Ohio, and they ushered them in to this town over here. And she is the person so far in charge. But, again, she explains it really well. This is a town that has not seen much action at all. They walled themselves up fairly early,
which could only mean one thing.
When shit hits the
Shit's
fan, it's going to hit really hard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because this crew doesn't know exactly what to do.
Yeah.
And it was her idea for, I guess, Aaron to go out there and look for people to bring in, because she needs survivors here.
Yeah.
She needs people who know what it's like to survive out there.
Yeah.
So that when the ish hits the fan, that these people will be able to be there.
There was a scene where, was it this episode where Sasha, headshotted a walker from
the start of it.
That was the start
the
of
very
it.
beginning.
Yeah.
And they kind of looked at her like, what the hell? Like, how did you guys say that? Because
That was a proving we know what we're doing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because she one-shotted it.
Yeah.
It's like a kid in
Rick
Call of
even
Duty
said
sniping.
to her, like, Sasha. He just said her name, and then she shot the
She
walker.
knew.
And I felt like, as you were saying, even John earlier in the episode, because I think I brought it up too, that it was like their way of proving, like, oh, you don't know who you're messing with here.
Yep.
We know what we're doing.
Because these people don't know how to handle walkers, apparently. I mean, we saw Aiden and the other guys, we'll get to it later, but they didn't kill them right away. Like, to me, when I first saw Sasha do that and they looked at her like, what the hell is that?
Right.
I thought it was them seeing for the first time how
walker
you
getting
actually
killed.
rid one of those.
Like, it wasn't a big enough deal that Daryl put an arrow through a possum. Like, at the second it startled him and got dinner, they had to show that Sasha was a sharpshooter as well.
Yeah.
Well, to be fair, he shot it at point blank. I did.
I mean, me too. Yeah.
Okay.
I can't say the same for myself.
I can't say the same for myself either.
Well, also Rick, when he first came in there, he also said that he's like, we're glad, that we got here in time, or something like that. Like right after she did the headshot. So I think that was very true what Derrial and John said about it trying to prove something, because even though it was only one walker, it still made sense that they know what they're doing.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like these people are going to need help sooner or later, and good thing we're here
Yeah.
to sort of, be in the front lines.
Well, again,
of that.
they're very capable, but here they are coming into a situation that they're not comfortable with. We already know that they have trust issues, but who can blame them after all that they've been through and all these other environments, and they have to give up their guns right away.
Yeah.
Well, it still doesn't feel comfortable, and aside from how sterile it is, you don't see a lot of people like walking the streets. Like, you see one or two people on their porch, and a few kids running down the street and stuff like that, but it doesn't feel like a community is there. So it's either there aren't a lot of people there to begin with, or people aren't warming up to Rick and his crew yet either.
Yeah. Well, again, I feel like the end of last week's episode, we heard all those kids laughing and everything. It's like that's not there. I wonder if that was in his head.
I feel like it was in his head.
That must have been in his head more because we did talk a little bit about that extreme close-up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's still a little odd. And as we start seeing some of these characters, Deanna seems so far, she doesn't seem untrustworthy to me. What do you guys think about Deanna?
I want to know where her husband is, because they didn't say that the husband died, and it just really seems odd to me that she's running the show and the husband's not even around for support.
I kind of took note of that too when she was talking about him. She was like, my husband is an architect.
Yeah, not dead.
But then she said, and what he was very
Yeah, I was going to say, I thought she was talking in past tense.
Well, the first phrase she didn't, but the second sentence after that, it was in past tense.
That was a response to what Rick said, because she said, what were you before all this happened? And he goes, does it really matter?
That's
true. So she told the story, and that's why what he was before it mattered. So that's why the past tense happened, I believe.
Well, don't forget that she, does mention that she did exile 3 people. And it was just as good as killing them, pretty much. She exiled 3 people. So we have no idea if those 3 people are going to come back or what part of the backstory this is, but it's very possible one of those 3 could even be her husband.
But when I was watching the episode, I was watching it with Steven, and when she said she was a congresswoman, the first thing he said was, oh, so she's like the governor. And maybe it was like, then when we were talking about, where's her husband, I was like, maybe she's hiding him like the governor hid his daughter. I don't know.
Well, I just thought it was interesting, too, because the way they set it up, I thought she was a therapist, like just with the cameras and just even the way they shot it this season.
She presents herself.
This episode, the way she presents herself, the way she's reading it. And yeah, I mean, I guess I could see the politician thing, but I thought therapist, because she's like listening, but I guess a lot of
But I think of Congress, I think she has a good negotiation tactics and she knows how to listen to people, and I think those are still skills. Maybe I've been watching too much House of Cards, but this weekend. But I mean, maybe there's something, but I could totally see why you thought therapist initially, because of the way they were sitting across from her and the couch and the camera and all those books in the background. It looks very, very well read, and the clarinet
in the bookcase.
Yeah, I missed the clarinet. Interesting.
Yeah, we caught that. So I felt that was a nice little sign of civility in a way as well. Yeah. Not really.
It's a lot of comfort too, because you're not playing music in an area where you think something's going to hear it and attack you too.
Yeah. So I'd love to see if she can play the clarinet later on. just randomly pull it out.
Her douchebag son will play it.
Yeah, there you go.
Yes.
Did anybody else feel cold with her?
I felt cold with her.
Yeah.
Well, another line that I think
it's hard to read her, Alexis. I would say.
Yeah.
Another line I think that was important was she said if she wasn't a congresswoman, she was going to be a professional poker player.
Yeah.
So it's not just about reading people; it's also about being able to bluff.
People.
Yep. Yes.
It's all about the bluff.
That's a good point. I felt like she was cold too, but at the same time, she's screening these people. I mean, she's kind of running the whole place, right? So you can't be too much of a softie or too, I mean, it seems like she trusts them, but she's not going to show it the way that we would probably, as friends, show each other we trust each other. So,
well, again, unlike the governor, too, I mean, she doesn't have, armed guards in the room with her. These are people, and some of them are in various states of, just resisting the whole thing or whatever it is. I mean, Derrial still has his crossbow, and he's got his possum when he's just pacing back and forth.
By the way, could he have gutted that possum anywhere else than the porch of a brand new house?
Going back to Sasha's shot, that was intentional.
He had actually taken a shower. You felt that he had taken a shower prior to gutting the possum, but he still looked as dirty as he did before.
I don't think he showered. I don't think he's the only one that didn't shower. Didn't Carol tell him that he needed to shower?
Well, he said he
looked
did.
a little cleaner.
Really?
If you noticed from the time when he was gutting the possum, he had dirt all in his shoulders and the back of his neck. And then in the next shot, he's completely clean. It's just dark.
Alexis has a keen eye on
Heck yeah. I gotta keep track of my hubby, guys.
But I think he did clean up a little bit. But but I think if anything, Derrial, this is a really interesting episode for Derrial because out of everyone else, Derrial sticks out like a sore thumb. And I do believe that just because the group's been so big that we haven't seen that much of Derrial. We saw a little bit of him after Beth died. A couple of scenes with him, but otherwise he's been pretty much in the background for a lot of this season, I feel.
Yeah.
What do you guys think about that? About Derrial?
We had some great one-liners in this episode. You know, he was like stereotypical Derrial in this episode. I feel like, you know, he brought back whatever he was lacking in the last couple episodes.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, especially when he told Carol, he's like, "You look ridiculous."
Yeah,
like,
you look
Like just
ridiculous.
flat out saying it to her face.
She knows it. She knows. Going back to what I said, I think a couple episodes back about how I think Derrial sort of felt like his role in the group was a little diminished because they couldn't hunt, they couldn't find food, and he wasn't really being the crossbow-bearing Derrial that we know. And I think now that they're in this community, he can be less himself even more, if that makes sense.
It was also really weird that he wasn't chosen to be one of the guys to do a run.
That's true.
I agree.
Yeah.
And he seemed offended at that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Well-
they picked the somewhat crippled kid and not him. Like, that's just a really odd decision from any perspective.
But the congresswoman was open about the fact that she can't read Derrial. Like, she doesn't understand him. So she didn't want to give him a role that, you know, she didn't know would work for him or didn't know that he would appreciate. So
She also probably figured out that he would have kicked the crap out of her kid.
totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, destroyed him.
Yeah. Oh yeah, he did pin one of the guys down.
Yeah.
Aiden.
Aiden,
Yeah.
exactly. But I do feel that, I think that really we're going to be seeing a lot more Derrial these next couple of episodes, just because you see Carol assimilating, even though she's obviously just putting up an act. We see Rick taking on the role of constable at the very end. We see him shaving and changing, and we see the rest of the group starting to acclimate, although, you know, depending on who it is, you know, obviously Glenn was having some problems this episode with Aiden, but Derrial just seems to steadfastly want to stay who he is.
Yeah.
And even though, you know, it's very true that the more comfortable you get, the chance more likely you'll be weak. It'll make you weak. Derrial is not even giving an opportunity to change in any kind of way.
Yeah.
So, and he's sticking out like a major sore thumb right now to me.
Did he keep just his crossbow and get rid of the arrows? Because he had his crossbow the entire time when everyone else gave their weapons.
Yeah, I guess
back.
the guns are considered weapons, but maybe not the crossbow, which I find interesting because that
like, why does he
crossbow is
still have
deadly.
it?
Well, the thing is, now that you pointed out, though, like, he always had the crossbow on him, but he didn't have the quiver, and you never
Yeah.
saw the
Yeah.
arrows. Unless they did show it and we all missed it. And then
Yeah,
I'm sure the people in
I
the comments are
didn't-
freaking out about it.
How could you guys not see that?
I was just thinking of, why would you ever want to actually try to take Daryl's crossbow away? Like,
Yeah.
if you think about it, I don't think any of those guards would have been like, I'm gonna take that.
Well, I don't know if he could just make his own arrows, like cut off some branches and make his own arrows
Yeah, you
or
can't
something
really
like
fit- No, you
that.
can't. No.
You can't, right? So I guess they just feel like, okay, you know, he's not Hawkeye. It's not the Avengers. He can't just turn anything into a into a weapon. So I guess just leave him his crossbow and let him oil it all he wants.
The one thing that I did think was interesting about, you know, you talk about the group and standing out like a sore thumb. I feel like the whole little army crew with Abraham would have stood out like a sore thumb, but because the group is so big right now, we didn't get to see that, because I feel like Abraham would not. He'd be in the same role as Derrial, where people are
Absolutely.
like, wait,
You know,
what
I
are
would
you
think
doing here?
I would agree with that, but there's one thing that Abraham respects, and it's authority, and he's a soldier, and the fact that a congresswoman is in charge.
I mean, he gave Eugene the lead, for Christ's sake.
Yeah, so I would feel that he has respect for a government official. So I
mean,
could
that's
see
true.
him. I could see him, you know, being in line. But it's interesting to see what his job would be, because they haven't given him one yet that we have seen yet.
Well, I
Well,
also
he
think
was
it's
told he was given one, but
He was told,
again,
yeah.
But again, you put the cripple kid out on the run thing, and you don't put somebody like Abraham. That's
Abraham,
it's
yeah.
really, really strange to me.
Yeah.
Well, also, it's interesting in the last couple episodes too. Like, they really haven't focused on Eugene and Abraham and Rosita. Like, they kind of take a second tier to everything that's going on.
There's just so many characters, though. I mean, we haven't really seen Tara do much either. So,
mean, that's true.
Yeah, it's just so many characters. And like I said, Daryl's kind of like disappeared until this episode a bit. You
Yeah.
know, so even him and I think a lot of people would say he is kind of Rick's number 2.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
but we
between-
still
Now it's
haven't seen
Michonne.
him.
I would say between Michonne and Derrial, they
Yeah.
were number 2. I would say Derrial over even Michonne, because he's
Yeah.
been there longer.
There's a
longer.
really good article that I saw today from Forbes magazine, of all things. I was just doing a couple of searches, and it was a really interesting article about comparing the comics to the TV show. And I don't want to go into too much because there are spoilers in the article. So if you look this up,
we go
I'm
with
telling
those
you ahead of time.
spoilers.
I'm not going to say it, but it did have a really, because Daryl's an original character,
Yeah.
not in the comic book. So it actually really did a good job analyzing how Derrial has influenced the rest of this cast in comparison to the books. You know, like Tyrese's role and even Abraham's role have been affected because of Derrial.
And even Michonne specifically.
Yeah.
I mean, Michonne is a lot lighter in the show than she is in the comics by far.
Yeah.
But again, that's just part of this thing is it's such a large crew.
Yep.
Yeah.
And you can't feature everybody. So now it seems to be Derrial's turn. And I think we're coming upon a bigger character arc for Derrial these next couple of episodes. I honestly feel that way. But that means that some characters get pushed to the side. And characters like Tara and even Noah, in a way, are going to kind of be forgotten for a bit. I hate to say that, but it's... and Gabriel. Did we even see Father Gabriel at all?
I at the beginning. He was at the top when they were all walking in, but we didn't.
We haven't
I was
seen
just
him
thinking that. I was trying to wait, did he pop
which
up
is
on
fine.
camera?
I'm okay with that. You know how I feel about him. I'm sorry. I'm just saying.
He needs to go.
He needs to go. I'm just saying.
Well, let's talk some more about Rick because we see how cautious he is. He wants everyone to sleep in the same house, even though all the houses are nice. But his transformation, especially the shave, that was a pretty big scene, getting them all nice and clean. And I know we were talking about it while we were watching the show on how whenever he shaves, one of you guys said that, like whenever he shaves, stuff usually ends up happening. He ends up being too comfortable.
Yeah.
I don't know, as someone who recently had a beard and then shaved, I don't know.
What's that like? I still can't grow one.
I don't know. I think sometimes it's comfortable, but sometimes I think it's just it gets in the way. So I even think it's just kind of like a way to just get rid of, like almost like a layer of dirt. Like get rid of it.
We were talking about. I think I said something about the fact that when he shaves, it does like change the dynamic of what's going on. But I think I was also thinking like. I almost felt like he shaves and he wants to assimilate to everything that's going on, but then we saw later on he's laying there and he gets up and gets the knife. You know, it's like he has a moment where he gets lost in the situation, but then he realizes very quickly like I can't let my guard down.
Yeah.
You know, it's like it all resurfaces back to him.
That's what I was thinking too. I mean, he wants to fit in. He wants to be in this community, or at least he just wants to make his kids have a better life. And if it takes assimilating to this community, and if it takes shaving my beard, then I'm gonna do it. But yeah, I mean, he remembers.
He remembers. Yeah.
He remembers, what he has to do to like keep everyone safe, and it's not enough for him to just like try to get comfortable. Like he actually needs to understand that they're not as in much danger as they were before, but it's taking a long time.
It's like a night terror. I mean, like it's like things can go great in the day, but I'm sure we've all had this where you wake up in the middle of the night, like in cold sweats of thinking about something, and it's like you're like, oh shit, like that's really this is the reality. I need to wake up. You know. So I feel like that's what he was doing.
I liked that like struggle for Rick this episode. It's like I want to be in this normal, comfortable situation, but I also don't want to be in that situation because that means that maybe I'll grow soft and maybe in the long run I won't protect my family like I wanted to.
I loved his speech when they were recording his speech with Deanna, and he was talking about that it's all about survival. People, don't bring people in here because people are always looking for an angle. They measure people by how they can use you, and he talks about that as a warning. But in a way, he's also telling them about himself because that's who he's become as well.
And we see that clip at the end again. They repeat it. It's like, don't let people in. And then we hear him at the end say what he said.
What he's thinking about, possibly.
Thinking.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
If we have to, we'll take the place.
Yeah. But he really cares about his family. He keeps them together. We see that one scene when he freaks out because he can't find Carle and Judith. He's really, really being tight. So let's talk a little bit about this other character that we met, Jesse, who meets Rick after he shaves, and everyone seems attracted. Yeah, everyone's attracted.
Every female in this town and the group apparently wants to have sex with Rick at this point. Everyone.
I think Michelle's at the top right now. She's at the top. They're getting their like weird
except
After I
Carol.
finally saw
Except
his
Carol still
jawline
wants
again, I was like, yes, please.
What was Alexis was saying? She was thinking of Andrew Lincoln from Love Actually.
Oh yeah,
That's what he looked like.
He looked like
except
his
he was
Love
much
Actually.
He did
skinnier.
actually.
Yeah, totally.
Actually.
Yeah.
He did.
Actually, he did.
Actually, he did.
Yes. So we are introduced to Jessie, who works in a pantry. She used to be a stylist, and she ends up completing his look, his transformation, his look by giving him a little haircut. And definitely seems to be. She's very cute. I didn't look up who the actress was, but she is very cute and
Nice tattoo
flirty.
on her behind her ear.
Yeah.
And one on her
She had an owl
forearm.
on her arm.
too.
Yeah.
Got a cool, like, what's the word? Bohemian
Owl.
She does.
A little
outlook.
bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, and she had the owl, and interesting because she has 2 sons, and they were doing an owl statue later on in the episode too. So that's the second time that owl seems to come in reference to Jesse.
Aren't they kind of considered guardians and watchers and?
Yeah, I suppose they are. Yeah.
They made a movie about that.
Yeah, that's what I was
Yeah.
thinking. But I feel like that's sort of a trope about owls. I don't know. Anyway.
And wisdom, of course, too.
Wisdom.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, it was interesting to me because I felt like she was really sweet and all those things and reminiscent of a young Carol almost. And then also her husband was to me like Carol's husband.
That's
Like
what
then
I
you see the
like.
dark side
Yeah.
of the guy with the cigarette. You don't really see his face, and all of a sudden it just reminded me of like maybe he's like Carol's old
He's the
husband.
Ed.
Right.
He's new Ed.
You know, and she never mentioned him.
Yeah.
First of all, you know, when they painted this picture like, you know, I thought maybe she was coming in. There was a little attraction to Rick or whatever. Maybe she was going to be the new booty call, you know, what's it called? The Walking Dead booty call. No, but she came in, but like literally, you know, she did not mention her husband, you know, and then later on we find out a little bit more about him. But I was like, maybe she's.
I like the fact that you think that they're married is going to stop somebody
Yeah.
from having sex with Rick.
I mean, that's true. Yeah,
But
that's
she
true.
didn't mention him. That's a big
She
deal.
did not mention
Yeah.
him. That's a big deal. And then he's kind of like this dark character that we haven't seen.
Well,
He
kind of
was
like
only lit by his cigarette too.
Yeah.
It was
Yeah.
crazy.
That was a little creepy.
Yeah.
And,
It's a
good shot.
Well, you know, just like Carol with her husband, I mean, this is a closed community. The pickings are probably slim. That's probably part of the reason why Rick is in so much demand after he shaves by everybody, because all the women are like checking him out.
There's a comment here. Give me. Oh, I just missed it. Give me shelter says. Rick gets clean shaven and Michonne puts a flower in her hair equals sexual healing. I can't wait.
See, I feel you. I feel you on that.
It's gonna happen.
Thank you.
I'm feeling
That's
it.
awesome.
It's gonna happen. There's gonna be a ship.
I ship it.
Yep.
I'm fine with it.
Is there a ship name for them yet? I'm sure there is. I just haven't caught it. Riccone.
Riccone,
That's it.
yeah,
Yeah,
it's Riccone.
that
It's
makes sense.
horrible.
Riccone.
It's so bad. It's so bad, right?
Better than Mick.
Yeah, better than Mick.
Mick is too vague.
It's March, so you know.
Also sounds like you hate Irish people.
Yeah.
Which is
Yeah, that's what I'm like, no.
And we don't. By the way, we don't.
That was a special message from Derrial Christon.
We don't.
So anyway, so you know, interesting again because Deanna, we were talking about Deanna talking about her husband, and here's Jesse not talking about her husband.
Right.
But I feel like there's something weird between those two. I guess until we hear more from Jesse about this relationship, this guy's just going to be a really creepy guy off camera with his cigarette.
Well, it's
hanging out.
also the way they were setting it up is like she did things that Lori did. She was cutting his hair. Lori used to cut Rick's hair. She used to cut Carl's hair. You know, in the very first
Oh, I
seasons.
don't remember that.
Yeah,
That's why
she used
Carl
to-
still looks homeless.
Yeah, that's right. Carl was right. But it was almost like they were trying to have Rick be really comfortable with her, you know, and so it just was reminiscent to me of like the first season, second season with Lori doing those type of things, and and even when it went to Rick shaving, I was like, oh, he must feel really comfortable, you know, and I was like, wow, it's interesting the way they're setting this up,
Yeah.
you know, so.
Absolutely.
Totally.
So let's talk a little bit about Carl, since you brought up Carl.
Carl doesn't stay in the friggin' house.
Literally going back. First time in a long time he's actually wandered off by himself.
Yeah.
Luckily, he didn't get in trouble. But
No, he
still,
ended
I
up-
was like, stay where you're supposed to be.
He ended up joining with his dad for a little
Yeah.
walker
A little
hunting.
adventure.
Yeah, a little adventure. But Carl ends up with possibly, I think, maybe a little love interest in himself. He meets the kids, Ron and Mikey, and meets Enid. Interesting name.
Enid.
Who's
Yeah.
from the
I like
Some
her
outside
old
name.
as
school
well.
Southern.
Alexis.
I don't like her name. It sounds like an old lady name.
It does.
Like you're
It
a little
does.
girl. Why? Are you, it's like Muriel
It's
or
like old school
something.
Dukes of Hazzard
Yeah,
or something going on.
Enid. That's Enid.
Also,
That's
she
Enid.
came in.
But still, it's like Enid. Like that's old school. It's like weird.
She also came in by herself, so she could have told people whatever she wanted.
Yeah,
That's true.
she could have
That's
picked
true.
any name.
That's true, unless her parents were among the three that were exiled.
Oh yeah, we never thought about
knows?
that.
Well, no,
Good one.
they said she came in from the outside.
From the outside.
By herself?
They didn't say by herself, but I doubt they would have brought somebody in from the outside and then exiled them. That seems
That's true.
odd.
Yeah,
Good point.
that's a good point.
That's, yeah, probably.
Yeah, but the one thing that stood out about her to me the most, even though we're already dismissing Carl at this point. She very much felt like Katniss Everdeen.
Yeah,
like,
you
to
said
me.
that.
Oh,
And she's just like,
Sneaking out.
I'm supposed to be behind these walls. Screw it, I'm going and doing what I want anyway.
Yeah.
And she climbs out, and nobody knows where she went either. Like, you know,
Sure.
Carl lost sight, and that was it.
Yeah.
Someone in the
Yeah.
chat actually, I was thinking the same thing. I'm trying to find the name really quickly, but we were both thinking that maybe there's another group and that she's the spy for it. I'm trying to find his name.
No, I like that
Yeah.
idea.
That could be interesting.
Yeah.
Especially, you know, I'm sure what we'll get to with spoilers and stuff, or predictions later. Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's a matter of how
That's
long
a-
she's been in Alexandria too, if she's really spying, because and how long it's going to take.
8 months.
8 months.
But
Yeah.
she did have a knapsack that looked full.
Yeah, that's
When
why I'm
she
trying to
left.
figure out what
Probably
she's
like taking supplies.
There you go, Joyce.
What if she's the one who took Rick's gun
That's what we were thinking when we were watching
when
it.
he was looking for it?
Yeah.
You know.
That's a good possibility.
Yeah, and it really stood out that it wasn't just somebody randomly came over it, because they made sure to replace the top on it, and that's something that, you know, if somebody walks by, you know, Rick could walk by it 50 times and
Yeah.
be like, okay, cool, it's still sealed,
Yeah.
it's still
Yeah.
sealed. But the fact that it was, you know,
So specific
yeah,
and hidden.
She must.
And if she's watching them, you know,
Yeah.
being a spy, that could be
she could have watched them on
interesting.
their journey to Alexandria
Yeah.
this
Yep.
whole time.
Very
And
possible.
no one would suspect her.
But going back to Carl really quick, can we clarify something? Because we know that he walked into the house next door and he heard thumping upstairs.
Yeah.
And he investigated as best as he could. And then he opened the closed door to find, you know, all these kid stuff. I don't
Yep.
know, the comic book or whatever.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden he stops looking for what he possibly heard. Was it that the kids were in there, he heard them, and he went upstairs, and then they heard him come upstairs and they jumped out?
I got the vibe that it was the window open and it was just wind pushing against that door.
Oh.
That
Yeah, I
was
thought the
that was
same
what I
thing.
got out of it.
But when he
okay, I
took the
didn't realize
comic, but
that.
when he showed the comic to Ron and Mikey, didn't they say that was?
He was like, I think this is yours, and they're like, oh yeah, thanks.
They gave it to Enid though.
Yeah,
Enid-
it was Enid's comic book.
It
That's
was
true.
Enid's
Yeah.
comic
Yeah.
book.
Sure.
They were
in
up
there.
there listening to music and
Okay.
things like that. That's
Yeah.
what they said.
Okay.
By the way, really cool kids. I mean, they're just so outside of this whole Walker world. They're just like to hang out and listen to music or play video games.
Carl's
They're gonna
what
die
the
so
hell?
much.
Carl's just excited
So
to be
bad.
around kids his age, like that many. You know, I mean,
Yeah.
we've seen
So
him
excited
with
he can't
kids
talk.
before, but you know, yeah, right, he can't talk.
Well,
right.
it's interesting because we
Well,
did
he's a
see him.
different kid from them. He's, yeah.
We did see him in the prison back then. You know, when he was talking with Mika
That still was
and Lizzie.
different, though.
No, it's still different. They were a little bit younger than
Yeah.
him. These kids seemed more his age,
Yeah.
but even then, it was hard for him to really
He can't relate
talk
to them.
relate to them, even the girls back then. So I
Well,
still think
even-
there's that.
Well, those
Even
kids aren't killing zombies.
The kid who
Yeah.
got sick, the one with the glasses, I can't remember his name, but the one who started the infection from inside the
Yeah.
prison.
Oh, yeah.
Even
Oh, yeah.
even those two together were always uncomfortable. So
It was a little weird.
Carl just feels like he's 5-10 years older than all these people. He feels like he's one of the adults,
'Cause he's grown
and he's
up.
just stuck with the kids.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean,
That's
a perfect
true.
example is when he finally meets up with his dad outside, right by the building where the gun was supposed to be. And they just make eye contact and do a little hand signal. Next thing you know, they're side by side with their knives, just
He
killing
didn't
all the
even
walkers.
question why Carl was out there. It's
Yeah.
like,
Yep.
why wouldn't he be?
Yeah.
You know, it's totally fine because that's what you should be
He's
doing.
doing what he should be doing,
Yeah.
absolutely.
I thought that was a pretty cool scene, actually. That was a pretty awesome scene, seeing them side by side, just
Yeah.
going for it. And Carl's grown a lot in that sense. And incidentally, that scene was also the scene we talked about last week. Scott Ian from Anthrax, the guitarist from Anthrax, being a walker in this episode. He was
Oh.
the walker that was
grabbed Rick's leg.
That grabbed Rick's leg.
When
It
he was looking for
walking.
the gun.
When he was,
Cool.
yeah,
Yeah.
after he was looking for the gun, I think it was toward the end,
Yeah.
and then Carl ended up getting that metal rod through his head.
Yeah.
So
Oh,
that was
cool.
Scott Ian. Yeah. So FYI, in case you were looking for him.
I also, you talk about Carl growing up and stuff. I also just feel like that was a great growth moment for Rick, because any other time he would have yelled at Carl for being out there,
Yeah.
but there wasn't even a conversation or scolding and stuff like that. It was
Because-
like, you're doing what you're supposed to, and I'm realizing you're an adult and I have to let you do that kind of
Yeah.
stuff now.
I
And that
agree.
also happened after Carl brought to Rick's attention that we could get weak in here,
Yeah.
right? That happened afterwards. So it's like, fine, if you think that's what's going to happen and it's totally viable, then please, by all means, like, go explore, go leave the place, just like Enid is doing. So
And
Yeah.
also for me, it really brought up of just the fact that this is what they've been doing for how many months or years
Yeah.
or whatever. Like, this is who they are. And it doesn't matter how much civilization will change that. It will always be like they're a father and they're a son and they kill zombies. That's what they do. They survive.
Yeah.
And I really like that.
That's their dynamic.
Yeah.
And it works.
No, it works well. And, I love how this relationship between the two of them has strengthened. I mean, I think we were talking about when we were watching the episode too. It was one point when Rick was confiding in Carl in the beginning of the episode. So he still values his son's opinion on everything. And that's
Carl can't be a normal kid. I mean, his dad is asking him, like real advice on how to do certain things that adults are doing.
Yeah, and he killed his mother. I don't think he's ever going to be a normal
he
child
killed his
ever
mother.
again.
Which I love. He told the end of that.
Without context.
Without
though.
context.
It wasn't like my mom turned and I stabbed her. It was like,
Yeah.
no,
I killed my mother.
I killed my mother.
Yeah. It was genius.
And I killed my mother's lover when he was a walker. Yeah.
I hope to God,
He didn't say
I hope
that.
to God there was context after the tape cut off from what we saw. Otherwise, Deanna is the worst politician leader ever.
Boy, absolutely.
She may have been corrupt. We don't know.
We have no idea.
Let's start wrapping this up and let's talk about Aiden, because this obviously was a very big pivotal scene. It's Aiden and taking a couple of our cast members out for a run.
in his members only jacket. By
in
the
his
way.
members only jacket. And he was-
I liked his members only
For
jacket.
what?
Well, it was. First off, the fact that he calls it, what do you say, test run?
Test run.
Yeah.
And then, but I just right off the bat, you already can't stand the guy. You hope he dies a terrible death. And he's like, I was in ROTC, and I said when we were watching, I'm like, what a douchebag. He goes, I know I'm a douchebag. I'm like, thank you for addressing that, because we weren't sure you were a douchebag.
Yeah.
Definitely not a character that I liked
No.
today. Not at all.
Painful death.
There's nothing about him that I'm like, okay, I sympathize with you. Or
Well,
empathize with you.
he obviously ROTC.
Not yet, anyway.
Nothing against anyone who does ROTC, but he's been in this wild community, and his biggest
He's been
experience.
protected.
Yeah, he's been protected. His biggest experience is doing ROTC, which is a college program, and you get to do.
Can't you do
Sometimes
that in
high
high school?
Sometimes
Yeah,
high
high
school.
school.
Okay, I thought so.
Yeah.
And you're not really
Exactly.
seeing battle, but you're training for it. So there's, he obviously has an idea of the way things are supposed to be.
It's like, don't tell these guys who've been out in the open since the beginning
Exactly.
that you were in ROTC when these guys have seen a lot crazier shit than you've ever been
Yeah.
through.
They've killed people. I guarantee that kid
He's
hasn't
so
killed anything.
entitled
No.
because of
Exactly.
that title.
Yeah,
the
well,
ROTC title.
it doesn't correct me if I'm wrong, and I probably will be.
The internet will correct you,
But
don't
usually,
worry.
usually people who are in ROTC, they also get a fast track to a higher position if they choose to go into the armed services.
Well,
I'm
yeah,
not
because
sure.
Yes.
it helps accelerate the
It
program.
helps
I
accelerate the
believe.
program. So they already have this mentality of I've gone through this training, so therefore I am
I'm
fit
prepared.
to lead. I am fit to command. And here he is telling these three, this is the way we're going to do it. And then talks about losing people on one of his runs, and they have this pre-ritual with a walker that's all tied up. And obviously, as we know from many, many examples in the past, that usually when someone decides to keep a walker just for the hell of it alive, good things do not happen.
Not at
Except
all.
for Michonne.
Except for Michonne.
I didn't understand their motive. I mean, I know that they killed one of their guys, but what was the point of them just tormenting?
Well, I got the
walker?
vibe it was like the pinata setup where
Yeah.
they were
Yeah.
just
That's
they
what
were
I feel
having
like.
hanging and they were just letting out aggression to go out there and we're gonna kick some ass
Pumping
and
each
stuff
other up.
like that.
How is not killing it letting out, or how is killing it not letting out aggression enough? I would be so pleased to let out my anger, just
Beating-
smashing the head of
If
a
you're a
walker.
terrible person, beating something up over and
yeah,
over again
that's
is better
true.
than killing it.
That's very true.
I guess it's true, but then of course Aiden does the really crappy move while they're trying to trap this walker and recapture him, and he ends up pushing the walker on top of Tara.
Yeah.
And Tara, I thought Tara was a goner.
she was a
actually,
goner,
I
yeah.
really thought finally.
I would have been okay with it.
Me
Well,
too,
we haven't seen
actually.
too much of her, so it's like,
Yeah,
it
we
makes
have to
sense.
see more of her before they kill her. It's true.
I don't know if we have to, but I'm just saying. I just think at this point, it's like if we lose her, we don't lose much of a story. So
Yeah.
it happens. It happens.
Yeah.
But she came really close, and then finally, Glenn jumps in there and kills the walker.
Which I like the contrast of the two groups. I mean, there was it seemed like, I mean, we know this obviously, that Rick's group, we think of them as the good guys, and they're a lot more humane in the way that they handle the walkers than this Alexandria group. So
Yeah.
they want to just beat them up. Like you said, if you're a terrible person, that's what you would do.
It's torturing an animal kind of
Exactly.
thing.
Yeah.
You're just torturing the thing,
It's like
whatever
bullying
it is.
them.
Yeah, and then here's the other group just putting it out of its misery, just putting it out of its what's left of its life.
Yeah.
So.
Yep.
Oh my
Absolutely.
Gosh, my phone.
That's okay. But yeah,
the whole
No, it's an alarm.
but anyway, yeah, I mean, Aiden gets pissed off. He wants to demote all of them and put them in. Don't worry about it. He wants to demote all of them and put them like in another job or something like that. And you know what's really cool is that going to keep going on? I guess.
Yeah, it's
it
an
is going
alarm.
to keep going on. Oh, it's an alarm.
Can I move?
Yeah, you can
turn
move.
It off? Okay,
You can move and turn it
BRB.
off.
Keep talking.
All right, Joyce is gonna move, but we're gonna keep talking. But anyway, I gotta admit, I love the interaction between Glenn and Aiden. And
I
Aiden
love
tried
that,
to do
yeah.
that cheap shot
Yeah.
on Glenn.
That was my favorite part.
But that was a great. I mean, Glenn pretty much said like we don't want to end up like your last group. That's
Yeah.
you know, or whatever it was. I can't remember the exact word, but it was really really biting. And then he tried to cold cock Glenn, and I loved the fact that Glenn just ducked, punched him out once.
That's all
And then,
we
he, and then he
wanted.
stayed there. He didn't
Yeah.
even he didn't do the
flinch.
pile on.
Yeah.
Well, he didn't do the pile on after
Yeah.
or anything like that.
Darryl
It's just
did.
like you're down.
Yeah.
Even if you get up, I'm going to take you out again. Like
Yeah.
I've shown I'm better than you at this.
And of course, Deanna comes, and there seems to be a bit of friction between Deanna and Aiden. And I think Deanna even knows Aiden's a douchebag because she pretty much put him in his place.
Yeah.
And he
And
kind of was a little like,
thanked Glenn.
Mom. Yeah, and thank Glenn. He was like, Mom. But I'm really.
And she took the side of obviously Rick's group, you know, and
Yeah.
she said they're a part of our group. We need to listen to them, and that's where it's
And
going back to
they're
my
equals.
point. And they're equals, and that was going back to my point that I feel like she feels that she needs another leader in there, maybe a male figure,
Yeah.
and just to come in and help her with creating this environment.
Absolutely. And of course, that's when she gives Rick officially the constable position,
Yeah,
and
she
we
did.
see him walk
Yeah.
out. And we got to wrap this up really quick. So I just want to end it up with, Rick's line about, if we don't like this place, we'll end up taking it over, which brings
Yeah.
it back to his
Oh,
whole
I
line
love
about
that.
using that. Yeah. So,
And he comes on the sheriff's
they're
outfit.
on guard. Rick's on guard. They feel comfortable enough to separate into different
Like
houses
he's
now.
sleeping with one eye open.
Yeah.
doesn't matter how comfortable he seems.
Yep.
Oh,
and
absolutely.
that's the whole remember.
So do you think
it's,
sorry.
it's remember that nothing is as good as it seems because they've had a billion places that should have been safe and got turned around on them or they were captured or anything like that. And remember to not get soft,
Right.
like you guys were touching on earlier, where if we get too comfortable here, somebody's going to take us over.
Somebody's
And
gonna take
he's
us
showing
over.
right there, remember to not let that happen this time.
But do you think that him coming out in the sheriff's outfit was similar to what Carol's doing, like to put to this
100%.
face
Same here.
on,
I
like everything
completely
is
agree.
cool and we're comfortable, but
Yeah.
deep down inside he's like, we're gonna take these.
He
motherfuckers
just
out,
not
you know?
isn't doing it as comically as Carol is.
Right.
He's
Yeah.
not a Brady Bunch character.
Well, he also can't be super, super soft because of the position that he wants. He needs an authority figure position,
Yeah.
whereas Carol can just play it down as
Make
much as she can.
casseroles to old people.
And knows what's going on with everything because she's going to get in with all the girls of the town because I'm assuming it's going to be, super, bifurcated with gender equality
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
being a thing. And she's going to hear all the gossip and everything like that and know what's going on with everybody else by being in that clique.
Ooh, I like it.
Yeah, I like that.
Let's. All right. Well, that pretty much concludes mostly everything from this episode. Let's just go really quickly to news and gossip. I got a couple of things.
AfterBuzz TV News.
I want to talk about ratings first of all. So we talked a bit last week about ratings and how The Walking Dead has been up against some really big Sunday night events. Usually they start this season after the Super Bowl, so they don't have to worry about NFL playoffs. But still, it's been the Grammys, then SNL 40th really took a blow to them. I mean, they're still doing powerfully. They had a 6.2 rating up against SNL's 40th, and then last week was the Oscars.
Yeah.
And they actually did really well against the Oscars. The Oscars underperformed. They still had like 30-something million people viewing the Oscars. But The Walking Dead actually went up to a 6.9 rating, and it went up from 12.3 million viewers to 13.4 million viewers total. So, and actually, they outperformed last year's episode up against the Oscars as well. So, yeah, so I think it's just great. I mean, look, there's no worries at all about ratings. This is just fun stuff that we like to talk about from time, or I like to talk
Puts
about
things
from
in
time to time.
perspective.
Yeah.
Puts things in perspective, but it also goes to show you that SNL's 40th was probably a bigger deal for Walking Dead fans than the Academy Awards.
Well, I also feel like in terms of story, it's gotten so much stronger than previous seasons. It's a much easier season to get into and everything like
agree.
that. And I think a lot of people are coming back to it too.
Yeah.
We are going to actually go straight to predictions because we've got to wrap this maybe up.
Let's do it.
Nice
Now,
lights.
your
I forgot about
AfterBuzz
that.
TV
Forgot about that.
predictions.
Okay, so we saw, first of all, just a very minor spoiler. I don't think we really saw anything from clips from next week that really show anything special. I think it's going to be another slow
Except
episode.
for Deanna saying, "I want something from you."
Yeah.
She did say that when she was talking
but
to
it's just
Sasha.
very, very minor spoilers. But what do you guys think is going to happen next?
I just don't think that the group's going to stay at this location for a long time.
Okay.
I don't. I feel like something's going to happen where they're going to realize, like how they're playing this role of becoming this what they think the society wants or what the group wants them to look like. I feel like there's something that's going to take them away from this group.
Okay. What do you think?
I think Rick is going to have conflict with two people, Michonne and Jesse's husband. Michonne, because she has been so willing to settle down and to sign the papers, if you will, by taking on a responsibility for Alexandria. And I think Rick is going to maintain that one eye open mentality, and him and Michonne are going to butt heads a little bit on that whole thing, maybe to the point where she might side with staying if the story goes to the point where Rick is going to leave or do something drastic. And he's probably going to have problems with Jesse's husband just because, for obvious reasons, and also maybe he was somebody who was in a position similar to Rick's and he got demoted or was no longer, considered valuable for any important role. And maybe not only is he jealous of him and Jesse kind of forming a friendship, but also because of that. So.
Okay.
I think an alliance is going to form between Aiden and Jesse's husband, and they're going to try to do something that is going to undermine Rick, and it's going to backfire, and that's where a bunch of people are going to get killed because of it. And I also think the finale is going to be Negan. He's going to appear.
Okay. I think Alexandria's going to be...
that's one of the exiles.
That's good.
I think Alexandria's going to be around for a while. I actually disagree with you, Derrial. I think they're going to be in Alexandria for a while.
We shall see.
And I also think that I think that Aiden is such a bully, and I think he's going to look for someone he can pick on, and I feel like that person's Noah. So I think I can kind of see that happening. I could see Aiden trying to pick apart somebody, trying to find a weak link.
I was telling John when we found out that Noah's dad was also an ROTC, and Aiden was like, well, did he make it? And then when Noah said no, the way Aiden said sorry just seemed so insincere.
Yeah.
I was like, ew, I didn't like the way he said that.
And then I just think Derrial, and then I just think Daryl's, like I said, he's just a sore thumb right now. I could see him leaving. Like leaving for a small period of time or whatever, getting out of there, because I just think he does not want to be there.
He's going against the grain. He's not trusting anything that's going on.
I just don't like what's going on with Derrial in the sense that he's like sticking out like a sore thumb. So that's pretty much it for this edition of AfterBuzz Walking Dead. Guys, where can we find you on social media?
You can find me at Derrial Christon on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and you can also find me on my network, Black Hollywood Live, which is our sister company for AfterBuzz.
Sweet. You guys can find me on Instagram and Twitter at JAJOURI, on the Shameless podcast that airs on Sundays as well, and the Gotham podcast tomorrow, and Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., which comes back on Tuesday.
Great.
And you can find me on Instagram and Twitter at @TheJohnCarl, and also YouTube, youtube.com/user/whiskey and waffles.
You said you'd only do that once. No,
yeah, but you asked me to plug stuff.
I know, it's all cool. And you can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Nandovel, Nandovel. You can also find me here on AfterBuzz for other shows such as The Blacklist and Scorpion and Survivor.
Nice.
And Bates Motel's returning this week as The Following. I actually jumped on The Following.
Ooh, wow.
So,
you got a busy schedule,
I'm
dude.
busy. Anyway, and you can find David Klein at David Klein, I think.
Shoot, I can't tell
I
you.
can't remember.
You just find Dave Klein.
Just find Dave Klein. And you'll find him in a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
Thanks again for tuning in. And Alexis, where can we find you?
Yeah.
You can find me on Instagram and Twitter at atorres890. You can also find me here at AfterBuzz for Face Off, The 100, and Castle.
Awesome.
Yay.
Thanks again for tuning in. Tune in next week for another edition of Walking
Not
Dead.
Survivor. Not Survivor. Well,
Walking
it
Dead.
is surviving. Kind of surviving.
It's surviving.
Surviving The Walking Dead.
Yes, Walking Dead on AfterBuzz.
And if you want to get John Carroll's shirt, which is, you got to show your shirt, man.
Amazing.
Walking Dead.
Where can they find that shirt?
This was an exclusive from Loot Crate, actually, so you can't even buy it anymore. But the Loot Crate guys give good stuff. So.
That's great.
We got to run. Thank you, guys. See you next week.
Bye.
See ya.
From executive producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire AfterBuzz TV staff, we would like to thank you for listening to the AfterBuzz TV network. To watch or listen to other after shows and post comments or questions, be sure to visit AfterBuzzTV.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of AfterBuzz TV.
Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.